Okay, well, everybody, welcome to the 2025 Vermont Balance of State Continuum of Care membership meeting. I'm so stoked to have you guys all here today. I'm Molly Shimko. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Continuum of Care Program Director. I'm a staff member of HHAV, Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont, which is the organization that staffs the Balance of State Continuum of Care. And I will have a lovely graphic for all of us to look at, for those of you who still are like, how the heck are these two organizations connected? So we will go over that, don't worry. But first I want to say, let's give a round of applause for everyone for coming out here today. Yeah. So stoked. I think you guys are taking valuable time from the other parts of your job that are, you're volunteering to be a part of this in addition to the regular work that you're doing. So we are really, really grateful. And now I'm going to pass it over to our co-chairs, Mary Garish and Kim Anitsberger.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary, and I'm so glad to see so many people here. It is just amazing because, as you all know, we're in a real time of crisis, and the only way that we can survive, overcome, and do the work that we're meant to do and want to do is by coming together.
Hi everyone, Kim Anitsberger here. Thank you, Mary. And yeah, I think it's really lovely to see everybody's faces in real life, not on the screen. I'm so tired of screens. So it's nice to be away from a computer today. And I'm really, in particular, looking forward to hearing about what's happening in everyone's local housing coalition, the different solutions and thoughts that we're having about the ways that we can solve this crisis that seems to never end. But trying to keep it positive. Put your gratitude on that wall when you have a chance. I have plenty of it. I just said what I just said. It'll be a nice time to hear from everyone and share this day together. Thanks.
I just wanted to add, thank you, Kim.
Sorry.
And, and, about the gratitude wall, I think that's, as Kim said, it's a really good idea because it helps me at least remind myself that there are still things to be thankful for. And so, particularly in light of the recent executive order, I am really looking forward to getting to know better everyone who is here. And some of you I've known for a long time, but I need to learn from all of you, and I think we all need to learn from each other to survive this. Thank you for being here.
I got nothing else. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary and Kim, and thank you for being our co-chairs. We really appreciate it. So next up, we're all ready. We're ahead of schedule, which is a beautiful thing. We're gonna hear from Jess Graff, who is our former co-chair for many years and now the chair of our membership committee.
Good morning, everyone. As the membership committee, we're working with Grace and Molly and the co-chairs to plan and make a theme for this event. We had the idea a little too late, but it was unanimous, that we would like to include in this meeting moving forward an annual recognition or award. We think that the focus on gratitude and positivity is really important. We think this work is hard and heavy and tireless, and yet we are constantly awed by the passion and dedication and perseverance of those who come to the tables to work towards solutions. And so we are announcing this year, instead of a winner, we are announcing that we will be doing an award ceremony annually and just planting the seed that you all start thinking about the requests that will come to you to nominate folks from your regions. And We need to focus on success and the strength that we see all around us. So good to be here with everybody today. It's really reinvigorating in a time of pandemic. So thank you all for making the drive, even if it was 350 miles.
Thank you so much, Jess. And thank you for manning our table over there as well and welcoming everybody. So I actually forgot one thing that I was going to do before that, so I'll do it now. He's talking about that infographic I promised. So to describe our organizational structure, Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont, as many of you will remember, is a merger of the VAHC, Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition, and Vermont Coalition to End Homelessness. And now, as HHAB, we are the collaborative applicant for the Vermont Balance of State Continuum of Care. We are all, HHAB also functions as an advocacy organization focused on achieving culture and policy shift outcomes, and advance its mission. So how we're meeting today here, this is a membership meeting for the Vermont Balance of State Continuum of Care, which is it's a HUD required organization for the state. It basically, I really should have a description of what we are. Because I kind of have a hard time describing it. But basically, what is it? We are a continuum of care. We're bringing together providers in all areas related to housing and homelessness across the state. To be a member of the Balance of State, all you really need to do is be working in the field. The only requirement is attending one membership meeting a year, which you all are doing right now. We don't have any votes at this meeting, but you all are voters when we do have votes that come up for the full membership. So this organization, the Continuum of Care, is, like I said, is we staff, so that, I don't know if I'm explaining this well, you guys, so I will have time for questions. But the staffing at HHAB is our executive director, Frank Cack, who we'll hear from soon, myself as the COC program director, and our amazing program coordinator, Grace Shire, who also did a lot of the organization for today, so major shout out, thank you to Grace. But we staff the Balance of State Continuum of Care and help all of the pieces of it run, including our board. We have a Balance of State board that'll be meeting later today, which has representatives from all of our 11 local housing coalitions and other parts of the field as well. And yeah, we have our, we also help staff and just help run our committees, which we have our official committees membership, which you already met our chair for that today. But Persons with Lived Experience subcommittee there. And then some of the other areas that we cover are point in time count that I'm sure most of you are very familiar with. Our youth committee, coordinated entry, HYS, homelessness management information system, strategic planning, and of course, a NOFO, for those of you who don't know what that means, consider yourself very lucky. It's a Continuum of Care program grant that we apply for every year or every other year. We are not exactly sure what's going to happen this year, but we will have more info soon from HUD. Basically, one of the purposes of the COC is to do a community application for a lot of projects across the state of Vermont to help bring in funding from the federal government to Vermont to these programs. So, and then we have some working groups that are not official committees yet, but our local coalition leadership meeting, which is one of very, very important and also going to be highlighted today, having presentations from all of our local housing coalitions, the representatives to our board from each of those coalitions and the co-chairs meet monthly. And so that is a super important committee. Education and training, and starting a new working group with Tara Casey, who was one of our co-chairs for a very long time around domestic violence and sexual violence. And I would love to answer any questions if people are still like, what the heck? How are these boards? Yes.
Did you say the PLE?
Persons with lived experience. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate that. I am so used to the acronyms, sometimes I forget that they are not common knowledge with everybody, and I used to be exactly the same. I did not know what everything meant. Okay, any other questions? Amazing, wow, you guys picked this all up exactly, and then there will be a quiz. So. All right, what is next on our agenda, Grace? Yes, okay. Next, you guys are going to hear from our HHAB Executive Director, Frank Cack.
Hey y'all. Good to see many of you. My name is Frank Knack. As Molly mentioned, I'm the executive director of HHAB. I've been here for about a year and a half now, so I've gotten to meet most of y'all. So I'm going to be talking about our HHAB strategic plan, which the HHAB Board of Directors approved at our June board meeting, and will be rolling out to the full membership next month. But wanted to just lift up a couple of things before jumping into this. One is, I know many of you all probably heard about the Trump, I mentioned earlier, the Trump executive order. We are still doing research into what that's going to look like on the ground. I think there's still a lot of unknowns. A lot of it's going to be left to discussion of various agency heads in terms of how they enforce. I think a couple of just key takeaways at this point is, just remembering that Congress is the one who appropriates funds, not the administration, and so the administration cannot unilaterally take away those funds. And so it'll really be about a lot of this is really going to be about the administration using its leverage to do culture shift, to kind of move away from harm reduction, to move away from housing first kind of evidence-based programs. Unfortunately, their ability to do that unilaterally is somewhat limited by separation of powers. But we definitely recognize this is a concern. We are definitely looking into this and circling back with folks as we gather more intel, talk with various folks in the state, really figure out what this is going to look like down the road. But just wanted to look that up because I know that when that came out, that was probably a big cause of concern for folks. Not only in our space, but harm reduction in Burlington, setting up an OPC center, open prevention center right now. We've made really tremendous progress on harm reduction over the years in Vermont. So, and just the concept of incarcerating people because of their housing status is unconscionable. So obviously lots of legal challenges in the future on this, but anyway, we can talk about that down the road. I also, in the kind of spirit of positivity, wanted to just lift up a couple of things that I think we should be really excited about. There's a whole bunch of bad things happening across the state, across the country, across the world right now. But when I joined y'all last summer, one of the things we talked about in terms of progress was what happened last year with juvenile systems of emergency housing. So if you recall, going into the 2024 legislative session, the Budget Adjustment Act for that year, which was the governor's proposal for what would be the funding for the remainder of the 24 fiscal year, 25 through the last June. They were talking about really gutting the GA program and moving to 5 regional congregate shelters. Fast forward to this year, that concept was not even on the table. And that was really thanks to the great work that the folks in this room have done to educate members of the legislature about why that is an absolutely horrible idea. And so I think while we are far from out of the woods on this issue, we saw going into this year, the governor put forward a budget that kept GA program at its current levels, a program that he has on multiple occasions said he does not like and does not think is effective. He did that again because he heard folks from y'all in this room and from others in the media, a lot of stories in the media have been doing around this. And then also, fast forward to what happened right after the Budget Adjustment Act, the governor issued an executive order expanding protections for at least some folks through the remainder of this past fiscal year. So again, a program that the governor doesn't like, he issued an executive order extending for a small subset of people. So again, that is because of the power of the voices in this room. So really appreciate you all making time when we send out action opportunities to make your voices heard, because that makes a difference. So really just wanted to lift that up. We have huge fights in front of us on GA, on affordable housing production, on a whole host of issues, but we are seeing progress and I think signs of hope. We are seeing a legislature that's fundamentally better on this issue. Going into last year, we had senior leaders in the Senate of both parties who had serious concerns with the GA program and were supportive of those big changes that the governor was supporting. Fast forward to this year, we had senior leaders in the Senate supporting the recommendation to continue the program as is. So again, a lot of work to do, but we will get there together, so thanks. So now on to our HHAB strategic plan. So this is the product of many months of work. So HHAB Board of Directors began this process, I think it was like end of last summer. We brought on Brenda Torpy, who had run Champlain Housing Trust for many years. So I'm sure you know Brenda to be our consultant on this project. I think we're really fortunate to have her in that role. The result is something I think I'm really excited about, and hopefully y'all will be excited about. I know this is a presentation on a strategic plan, so I'm going to try and not make it boring and not just read. Apologies in advance if it gets a little boring. So this is our new mission and vision. And so I think just to point out a couple things, at HHAB, we're going to be really focused on policy outcomes around collaboration and really strengthening the community, and also capacity building, really strengthening the capacity. We'll be talking about that in a few minutes around the work we're going to hopefully be doing with the LHCs and with the balance of state as a whole, and then continuing to work closely with Sarah, Taylor, and Bryce, and all the folks at CCHA to hopefully have a statewide response from the CNC perspective. And so, as Molly mentioned earlier, at HHAB, we wear two collaborative integrated hats. We are the collaborative advocate for the balance of state COC, and we also advocate, so we do that through advocacy at the State House in Montpelier. We do that at the local level. We coordinate with our partners at the federal policy shift. We also do lots of work around culture shift, so lots of work in the media, organizing in communities, and what we can talk a little bit about that more in a few. So just how we got here. So we had a three-phase strategic planning process. We really wanted to be intentional to make sure that we were hearing from all the folks on the ground doing this work. So we ended up surveying both through in-person one-on-one meetings and also through a survey over 60 individuals and partners from across Vermont to really understand kind of at that local and regional level what the issues were, and then taking all that together to understand then statewide what issues popped up, where they popped up, and then where those gaps were where HHAB could best fill the role. We then moved into the second phase where we really developed three kind of what we call pillars, or really buckets of kind of where we wanted to focus our work. And then the third phase, which we wrapped up back in January, was the kind of the specific measurable outcomes that we're going to be working towards achieving over the coming 3 years. And so this is just some of the kind of facts on the ground, but I think also were important in our analysis. Many of this is stuff that you all know, but I think a lot of the conversation around the housing needs assessment was really that big global number of 20, I think it was like 24 to 36,000 new homes by the end of this decade that we need to build. I think one of the less talked about pieces of that were that we need to have over 3,200 homes just to address homelessness, and then another 13,000 homes that need to be affordable homes. And so about 50%, or 1 out of every 2 homes that have to be built over this next decade need to be affordable homes. And that's the thing that we're going to need to keep coming back to, because the legislature right now is seeing a move away from really investing in affordable housing production. Second piece was just the kind of the facts on the ground in Vermont in terms of homelessness. And again, this was 2024 data that we were working within. 2025 data, I'll talk about in a few minutes. The report numbers is not much different. So we have one of the highest per capita rates of homelessness in the country. Our numbers themselves are huge and not getting better. Our shelter capacity is also lacking to basically meet the need. Where we have, it says 655, I think the latest data sheet I saw was we're down to around 600 household shelter capacity across the state, with over, according to the most recent coordinated entry data, over 4,500 unhoused people in Vermont. So a massive gap between current capacity and shelter capacity. We need that gap. And again, one of the real reasons we focus so much on GA is because it's been that backstop program for that gap. I think another factor that's not talked about often enough is the staggering racial disparities in homelessness and housing access in Vermont. So 74% of white Vermonters own their home compared to just 27% of black Vermonters. And then in homelessness, black Vermonters are 5.6 times more likely to be unhoused than white Vermonters. And then if you dig deeper and look at arrest rates and kind of the vital harms of arrests, the staggering racial disparities in arrest rates in Vermont, and just magnifying the crisis that we're living within. basic fact that we need sustained long-term. None of this is going to be solved overnight. We need to have a mapped out long-term plan and stick with that plan to be able to solve this crisis. I think one of the problems we always deal with at the legislature is legislators work on 2-year cycles, and we're always worried about getting reelected in that next kind of campaign cycle. And what we need is a 10, 15-year vision to be able to move us out of where we're at today. And then another factor that really came into our analysis like halfway through the process, and with the federal election, was just the impact at the federal level, and just that we are seeing and are going to be seeing attempts to kind of gut some core programs. If folks have questions, we can talk about that more. I think we are seeing a distinction in the rhetoric between President Trump and his budget proposals and where few Republicans in Congress are at in terms of financial assistance, in terms of the CLC program, coordination, full apparatus. So there's some, I think, positive things happening there, but again, we're working in a really, really restrictive federal environment right now. And so those were that was the basis for Lynn and the board's work to figure out where we wanted to be. And so in terms of our first bucket, HHEB, we really wanted to focus on being a leading voice on housing and homelessness statewide. That doesn't mean on all issues that have to do with housing and homelessness. That has to do with the issues that we're focused on at HHEB. So really focus on promoting affordable housing production and addressing the homelessness response and prevention needs that we need in our state. And so we're going to be doing this through legislative advocacy. I think another area where we're going to be getting rebrand over the next couple of years is around documentation projects and reports. And so we've obviously been doing annually the PIT report, but there's I think a whole lot of research that needs to be done that I think would be super helpful for advocacy going forward around, for example, the drivers of homelessness. I think so often we hear this really aggressive rhetoric from political leaders from both parties that homelessness is just people create their own environment, it's people who just are using drugs, and all these really just functional things that people say. And if you actually did the research and peeled back, what was that thing that happened? Was it someone that lost their job, or their car broke down, and they couldn't afford their auto payment, and that led to the spiral? What were those things? But really having good data around that. And so we want to be able to do deep documentation work around that, and do survey projects to understand the drivers, to have stories to be able to have the data, and then the stories that are needed to really shift the public narrative around these issues going forward. I think another common thing is around crime, and Trump's executive order is a perfect example of this. And it's like this whole we are framing homelessness as individuals who are committing crime and making their communities less safe. And at least the national data paints a complete opposite picture of how people are actually more likely to be victims of crime. And so really doing research and having Vermont specific. Oh, sorry. Good. Thanks. Is that better? Sorry. I can actually hear it now too. And so really just understanding what those drivers are, really using this to shift culture, and to also give organizers and folks working at the local level additional research tools that they can use to educate members in their communities. Because as select board is the next set of folks who are going to be in Montpelier, who are going to be the next set of folks who are going to be in DC. And so really taking lessons learned from the other side about how they've been able to build power and bringing that to our work. We also really want to start doing a better job within HHAB as centering voices of people with lived experience. And so I think one of the things we're really going to be working on over the coming year is building out and spending time on our People with Experience Committee and making sure that each LHC has the resources they need to be able to have someone from each LHC as a member of the PLE committee, and then making sure the folks in the PLE committee are really truly partners in decision making going forward in terms of policy, in terms of outcomes, et cetera. And then finally, really shifting the public narrative. And so a lot of this is that documentation work I was talking about, and PLE work, really just educating folks what are actually the facts behind the housing crisis, the homelessness crisis in Vermont, what are the drivers, and using that to really shift culture in Vermont. And so in terms of 3-year impact, so these are the things, the measurable outcomes that our board has set for us that we want to achieve over the next 3 years. And so the first is around increasing access to permanently affordable housing. And so we were really intentional here. This is not affordable housing, this is permanently affordable housing that we're going to be focused on. And so it'll be securing at least $50 million for an annual appropriation. This would be in addition to what VHCB currently gets through their statutory share of the property transfer tax. And so just to put this in context, this year the number was $5 million that VHCB got. So we have a lot of work to do. And even this $50 million is not enough to get us to where we need to be, but this is something we thought was potentially realistic within the 3 years. And one of the things we really want to do is try and create a dedicated fund for this. And so there may be opportunities through revenue or through other kind of, there was the legislation 2 years ago that would have created a new income bracket of folks who had taxable income of $500,000 or more and tax net at a 3% surcharge that would have raised $75 million potentially for housing production. So we're looking at all these opportunities to create a dedicated fund. The other is around necessary reforms to construct 3,300 homes for unhoused Vermonters by 2029. Again, that number comes from the housing needs assessment. So this can be done both through money from appropriations, but also through, I think, talking with many of you all, I think there's concerns about, for example, how VHIP is operating right now and pulling people off coordinated entry in the waiver. So are there opportunities to kind of make tweaks to existing structures that we have to ensure that we're pulling more people off coordinated entry into programs, et cetera. The other piece is homelessness prevention and response. And so right now, I think there's around 33 million in HOP, around 38 for GA. And we know that's far from enough to address the crisis. And so we're going to be working to up that to hopefully around, again, this is not enough, but these are things that we thought were realistic within 3 years to get to around 80 million a year in annual appropriation. The second bucket that we're really focused on, and I think this is where the core work for HHEB over the next 3 years is going to be, I think most relevant to the folks in this room, is really enhancing the strength of the local housing coalitions. When I took this job, one of the things I was most excited about was the fact that there are 11 local housing coalitions across Vermont. I mean, that is like a built-in capacity building, power building, organizing infrastructure that doesn't exist in most places. And so I think, there's obviously a lot of work that we within HHAB need to do to be able to do this. And so we're really going to be focused internally about what is the capacity and staffing and other supports that we need to be able to better support the LHCs. I know the LHCs right now are voluntary run. You all have day jobs, and you're doing this as a second thing that you're doing. And so we want to be better partners to ensure that we can help staff. And so our hope and goal by the end of this 3 years is that we'll be able to, for the LHCs that are interested, really help staff the LHCs so that you all can focus on your work, making decisions for what your communities need, but you don't have to worry about the logistics, the day-to-day, about the functioning of the LHC. And then also, we want to figure out ways that we can better create tools and supports for the LHCs. So I think we've talked with many of you all about this housing needs matrix and homelessness needs matrix that we've been working on for many months with Abby Miller from Housing Innovations, so that we really understand and have a uniform way of tracking across all the LHCs, what are the current needs, where does it need to be around housing, around homelessness prevention response, around staffing, all these pieces. So that gives both the LHCs clarity on where they need to be, but it also gives us as advocates clarity about, so when we're going to Montpelier, we have concrete data that says, okay, this is actually what we need in Bennington, for example, or in Springfield, or wherever that might be, to address the crisis, and this is the data that backs it up. So we're really excited about that. And then just in terms of our impacts, we're really hoping to have clear vision, long-term plans, measurable goals, working with each LHC around all those pieces after 3 years. And then the final area is really just building up the organizational infrastructure of HHAB. So I kind of talked a little bit about this, but we have our, you saw at the beginning, our new logo. We're building out a new website. Our new website will be out next month. We're really hoping that this will be a much better tool for folks on the ground to be able to access information. We're also, Grace has been doing an amazing job of getting kind of regular monthly coordinated entry data and being able to give each LHC what it looks like on the ground in their jurisdiction in a more real-time way. So we'll have more data available, but also and then for the general public, we'll have additional resources, and so it'll be hopefully just a general hub for everyone in the community that cares about these issues, whether there's someone who's working on the ground or someone who's just an advocate or a concerned community member, that they'll have the resources they need to be able to advocate or at least understand issues. So that's in a nutshell where we're at. The folks have questions at this point. So obviously all this is future looking. We have a ton of work to do, so we'll definitely be in touch. And then just wanted to conclude with noting that we are going to be releasing what used to be called the PIT report tomorrow. It used to be called the PIT report because this year we were also able to get coordinated entry data. And so the report will be both a look at 2025 PIT data as well as the full month of June's coordinated entry data. So we'll have a really good understanding of what the facts on the ground look like in Vermont. So that report's coming out tomorrow. We'll make sure we get it out to y'all. It's going to be called the State of Homelessness in Vermont. Really huge thanks to CCHA, the Balance of State, for all the work getting this together. And yeah, thanks. It will be next month when we launch the new website. And we'll be doing a similar presentation like this at the August membership meeting. Yep. So this is kind of a preview. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frank. All right, you guys, we have hit our first break. It's time for Sunshine Break. So before we get going with our local housing coalition presentations, go outside if you enjoy the heat, stay in here if you don't, and we'll be back here. Oh, Grace, was it there on the agenda over there? Thank you. That's now. So, how about 5 minutes? You guys can be back here in about 5 minutes at 10:50. Thank you. All right, everybody. As people are settling back down, we are now getting into the part of our day where we're going to hear from all of our local housing coalitions. So we are going to be starting with a presentation from Jessica McKella from the Homeless Prevention Center, representing the Rutland Local Housing Coalition. So we will get rolling with that.
Good morning, everybody. How's the sound? Is the sound good? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. This actually works better. I don't get the crippling anxiety of being up there in front of you in person, but hello from Rutland County. Okay, it sounds like it's on its way, but I'm going to keep going. So I'm sorry that we're not there in person. Angus decided to take a vacation, and I'm out of the office. But I just wanted to share some good news from Rutland. What I wanted to share was a little bit some good news about our HUP financial assistance program and the work that has been done in the last year. And we really want to share the efforts of clients and all of our community partners that resulted in us serving a record number of households in Rutland. So we provided some type of financial assistance and services to 226. And this includes a mixture of serving people who are experiencing homelessness and a mixture of homeless prevention efforts. And if you look at the chart, you can see it breaks down to roughly an even percentage of homeless prevention activity as well as rapidly housing. So, how did we do that? Well, yes, we did run out of funds before June 30th. We did. But we almost made it. And part of that is we take a lot of time and really do our due diligence in reviewing applications, leveraging funds, and tailoring the financial assistance to meet the need of a particular individual or household. So not providing too much and not providing too little. I also wanted to highlight, we did expand some of our emergency shelter apartment units. We served 50 people through 9 emergency apartments, and we're talking about last fiscal year. This is an excellent alternative to obviously being unsheltered, but also being in a shelter environment or a motel environment. We really love this program. It's been so vital to help individuals and families rebuild their rental resume, work on budgeting, and just life skills to be able to run a household and an apartment. And this is something that I personally get a lot of joy out of, the work that comes from being able to be in the home with the people that we're serving. Our landlord liaison has done 21 successful landlord-tenant mediations. We define success as stopping evictions that are in process. It's important to note that, yes, financial assistance is great, but a lot of tenancies involve other issues that aren't related to monies owed, breaches and other things like that. So it's important to vote for us in our county to devote energy to trying to address those other things to prevent a housing loss. And we still keep a retention rate. So we started this a number of years ago, and it came out of an RBA thing that our agency did, results-based accountability, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. Like, what's one piece of data that we would pay money to track? And that was, we wanted to see a year after we assisted a household, whether that's from homelessness to new housing or stabilize somebody in current housing, what percentage of folks are still remaining stably housed at 12 months? So in our post fiscal year 1 year look back, we have 86% strong. Rutland kind of hangs around the 80, 85, 87% rate. It's a lot of work to do the follow-up to ensure that we have the data, but this is one of the things that we're really proud of. It's information that our local group really needs and allows us also to boost morale and also give us the perspective, because sometimes we focus on a smaller percentage of tendencies that seem to just like explode. We give those a lot of time and energy for obvious reasons. But it's nice to know that the majority of folks are still doing okay at 12 months. So we like to share that data. It helps us analyze, okay, let's go back and look at those tendencies that were not stable after a year. What are some themes? So for our local Continuum of Care, local housing coalition, it's hard for me to change the language, but I know the language is changing, but I still call it the COC meeting. So our group meets monthly where we share updates, resources, and strengthen our collaborations. And also, this is the opportunity to discuss important developments statewide. So our meeting is chaired by Angus Cheney, my boss at Homeless Prevention Center. Unfortunately, couldn't be here today. We wanted to share a little highlight of something old and something new. I have someone in our office getting married this week, so that's probably where that idea came from. Something recent, as of this past month, we've been encouraged to see Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living become more intentional about reaching Vermonters who are experiencing homelessness. So this month, our chair invited Deputy Commissioner Angela Smith-Dean to Rutland, where she shared updates from Dale's work at the intersection of homelessness and disability. So members heard about Dale's long-term housing goals, as well as recent collaboration with DCF to identify people who are in GA motels who are eligible for supports and residential options within Dale's system of care. This connection also brought our local Council on Aging staff into Rutland's local Continuum of Care, which we're very excited about. And then the something old, we like to in Rutland, a lot of times when we have extra time, we do try to present to each other, workshop with each other. And one of the things that we started with a workshop that we continue to do is problem-solving conversations. So this is also known as diversion. So really, a diverse amount of people in our Rutland group. Some people are case managers, some people are just providing quick services and interactions with people. But we all wanted to talk about how could we, with what time we do have, help people who are in a crisis situation of needing shelter immediately. So diversion is designed to immediately address the needs of someone who just lost their housing and became homeless, in the context of which I'm talking about it. And obviously our goal is to help find safe alternative housing immediately, to avoid entering shelter or becoming unsheltered. So our group reviewed kind of the layering of considerations of the process, including understanding the cause of somebody's situation, what immediate solutions are possible, and how can we help people pursue those solutions. Everything from negotiated returns to previous housing, short-term non-shelter options, returns to family, apartments or shared housing. So we felt this was important material to review and talk about it. It forces us to step back and engage with people on what is typically not a long-term plan. Maybe it's just, okay, where are you going to be safe tonight? And what does that look like? And how can we help make that happen? We might not have a solution for the next night. We're going to have to work on that. So it puts us out of the box of long-term goal planning in that moment. That's not the purpose of these conversations. We're talking about where can you go now, tonight? How long can you stay there? And then what happens afterwards? Our group talked about best methods to do this, including the do's and don'ts when helping people in crisis activate their creativity. We often find, and I often find, the initial response is people will say, like, I have nothing, I have no options. It's typically not the case if you spend some time with people. They often need just an ear and guidance to get there, to get in that space of brainstorming emergency options. The point here, and the reason why we enjoyed this so much is because, yes, with all of the changes and more people are using the motel option, this is a muscle that we haven't flexed really hard in the last couple of years because we haven't had to worry about that. It's been almost unlimited access to shelter. So it's really important that while we're working on those housing goals and getting people to permanent housing, that we also exercise that muscle of, there are people who are not going to be able to just get into a hotel, so we really need to do some brainstorming and tap into our creativity. So the impact you can have, even if it's a brief interaction, should be recognized. And, you know, the good feedback was not everybody has time to devote and sit and go through this with people, but even for just a few minutes of asking some real pointed questions can really help somebody get into that state of mind where they can start accessing that part of their life of creativity and brainstorming and problem solving. Still, with all these wacky changes, which I get insulated from the political stuff, thank you, ACUS. A lot of our staff, I could say at HPC, and I see it in other organizations with staff turnover, they've been used to having a lot of access to stuff, and that's changing, and so that's new. We do emphasize, like, what is the best tool, what do we have, and if I was there in person, I would wait and see what people say, but I'm not going to do that in this weird virtual setting. I submit that the best tool is us at humanity. Our ears, our honest engagement with people is our best tool. Our staff who are listening and resisting the urge to jump in and helping people unlock their creativity and desire to brainstorm a plan, especially in times where resources are becoming more challenging. We might not have the same tools, but our number one tool, our best tool, and the tool that needs the most, our staff basically are the people doing the work and the people supporting the people doing the work. So all of this is to say that there are challenges and we're meeting those challenges, right? But it's important we acknowledge our value in walking alongside others and looking after each other and nurturing the people doing this work, all of us. So one of the things we're really focusing in on is keeping the morale high, especially in these really, well, you guys know. He's very stressful, and at times it can be really discouraging, and hope is something that all of us are responsible for trying to generate for other people, but we need to keep it for ourselves. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate everybody who has a hand in these efforts. And I would just say there are going to be staff who are reacting to all these changes and feeling like they don't have the tools that they need. We need to invest a lot in them to keep them going and remind them of their value, even if they can't just grab a subsidy or grab an emergency apartment immediately for somebody. Our communities need us, and they need us at our best. Okay, 13 minutes, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Hopefully you can hear, I don't know how well you can hear us from this side, but really appreciate the presentation from Rutland today, and so appreciate you jumping on Zoom. Awesome, thanks, Jess. Okay, next we are going to be hearing from Addison County. We're going to be hearing from Jean Montross. I hope we pronounced that correctly. From Hope on Addison County Housing Coalition role in Middlebury's drafting and adopting a trauma-informed encampment policy and ACHC statewide advocacy efforts.
Okay. So over the past couple of years, people from our coalition worked with people from the town of Middlebury to create an encampment policy. A couple of years ago, there were a lot of homeless people out on the streets camping downtown. It was causing a lot of distress for businesses, so folks decided, let's get ahead of that. Let's work with the town and with the downtown business district folks. And they really did a great job in what they came up with. So when you look at guiding principles, the collaboration, cultural competence, empowerment, respect, dignity, safety, and trauma-informed care. And one of the things that stands out for me is that under safety, they're saying they start prioritize physical safety for unhoused individuals and the surrounding community. And it had been that people felt that the unhoused people were making it unsafe and they were being blamed, and we had to point out they're not safe. So if they're not safe, everybody else isn't safe. We've got to work together. And the town really heard that and flipped that for us. The trauma-informed care, I thought they did well with, because they want to find empowerment, safety, collaboration, and to work towards sustainable solutions that benefit everyone, not just the townspeople in their little homes and not just the businesses downtown. The definitions, they have a definitions section which talks about what is an encampment, the characteristics of that, the who, the what, the agencies. Engagement and support, the town and the partner social outreach agencies, which is about 6, I believe, right, Susan? They're looking at how can we really work together to make this work. There are access to resources that are provided. That includes offering help with applying for housing. People often have medical needs. They don't have water. They don't have food. So each of the organizations around town has different things to offer. So you can go here for a shower. You can go here to get food. You can go here to get
cool or warm when the weather warrants that. And then also people take supplies out with them, hygiene supplies, wound dressings, water. This summer we've been concerned about how can we get ice out to people, and that's not an easy thing for folks. So we are looking at using conflict resolution strategies. There are often conflicts between a business owner and somebody who's unhoused down there right in the center of town. People who are unhoused, they're stressed. Many of them are traumatized, and there are conflicts between each other there. So we're looking at trying to just calm the waters there and find solutions that work for everybody. The coordination is really important. So there's a quarterly meeting of town officials, service providers, business owners, and others. They discuss known encampments, and they're evaluating the progress that they've made, and there's an annual assessment and looking at quality assurance. Encampments and compliance. There are definitions of what encampments are not allowed. There are specific locations. There are factors such as, are there illegal hookups to utility poles? Is emergency access being impeded? Is accessibility into buildings being impeded? So there was great care taken with determining what exactly is an encampment that is not going to be permitted. And it was really good. They didn't want to say, you can camp here, because then everybody's going to be going there. They just said, these are the places, these are the characteristics of locations that are not going to work. When it gets to the point where enforcement is needed, there's a very respectful procedure for that. People are nudged towards, you need to move on, you need to move on. Here's some folks who might help you find a different place. Eventually, they will be given a very visible 30-day notice to vacate. They have rights. So pictures are taken. Their belongings, if they have to be removed, those are going to be kept by the town, I believe, for 30 days, and people have a way to get those back. And this is a process that really, really has helped. I remember just 2 winters ago, there were letters in the paper, everyone was in distress, and it's a whole lot better now. So I encourage you to talk with your town folks if you have, you probably all have. Any questions? I can send that. I'll send that to Grace and she can send it out to you. Sure. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. All right. All right, continuing on here, we're going to hear from folks in Springfield, Lee Trapani and Tara Chase from, or maybe just Lee, from SSHP, Springfield Supported Housing Program, on Project Action.
Sorry, you're just going to have to look at me. There's nothing to share. Tara would love to be here. She was real integral in getting Project Action going. She's been dealing with some health stuff, so I'm here to represent. I'll read what she presented, hopefully be able to answer questions, and we'll go from there. I'll get a little bit closer. How about that? So when we were presented with this prompt to go to our LHC and say, what do you want to hold up as a positive, something that's working well in our district, there were many ideas, including our landlord resource fair and appreciation, our work as a local housing coalition, doing governance charter work and strategic planning, as well as our expansion of our coordinated entry partners. But we settled on Project Action, being that that was something that we could really see a direct impact. So Project Action is a community-driven initiative working to build a safer, healthier Springfield. This was originally launched in 2014 to address crime, violence, and substance misuse. It was revitalized in 23 under Governor Scott's 10-point safety plan. The belief then was we need a community-specific response to address our community's unique challenges. So the mission of Project Action in Springfield is to work collaboratively with community stakeholders to mitigate the impact of crime, address substance misuse, support residents in treatment and recovery, and promote the overall betterment of the community. At that table, every Friday, the partners include law enforcement, probation and parole, emergency services, healthcare providers, recovery networks, mental health professionals, state and town agencies, and local citizens. And Project Action is now a 501c3 nonprofit organization for Springfield. As far as our collaborative action, we bring together over 70 agencies and hundreds of individuals and regular meet, like I said, on Fridays, every Friday, to share knowledge, combine resources, and pursue impactful strategies. Our community table meets every Friday at 9:30 to share data and to brainstorm solutions for specific cases. And then once a month, we do a Project Action committee meeting. So the weekly coordination of services for families, at that end of the Project Action, there's a situation table. And so if there's a very specific case of a family or a household who needs support, you can present to that situation table and see what sort of support is available in the community. As far as our subcommittees, there are 4. There's a crime and safety subcommittee, which is redesigning policing and supporting our at-risk youth. There is a prevention, treatment, and recovery committee doing surveys and trauma-informed training. There's a housing coalition addressing homelessness and housing insecurity. And there's a community and neighborhoods committee that's building engagement and supporting youth and families. These 4 teams ensure that our work is focused, deep, and responsive. For success stories, we've seen real impact. In Springfield, the North Star Health Center, formerly Springfield Hospital, has a mobile unit, which is a mobile health lab, essentially. It's a hospital room that they can drive around. And so they'll set up in at-risk communities and be present in the community for folks to present and say, I'm having this issue or I'm needing some support. We did, through a relationship with Fabulous Landlord, build a resource center, a resource room, I should say. It has showers, laundry, and a kitchen for those experiencing homelessness. And that's not open like just a wide open door. You have to be there with a representative of Project Action. So either the police or the Turning Point Recovery Center or our agency, if somebody is needing that support, they can access that. There is youth engagement. Most recently, they did graffiti classes that helped to develop a way for the youth to have some creativity and build pride, and that was for a community-wide project. And then improve communication among the agencies while maintaining HIPAA standards, because I know obviously that comes up with talking about specific cases. And to talk about a really specific case, we had the town of Springfield reach out to us after there was a building code violation on a private property. This is a privately owned house that they did an inspection on after driving by and noticing that something wasn't right. The owner had, their partner had passed away and they had not been maintaining the property. With the collaboration of Project Action, we were able to get a dumpster and 19 volunteers, and we went and supported her in cleaning out the horrid level of issue that was there, repairing flooring and getting an air purifier for the space that was maybe had too many pets in it. But you know, as far as just the amazing community output to say, here's a privately owned home with somebody who is going to end up homeless if they continue down this road. How can we support them? The police department showed up, the probation and parole showed up, they volunteered to come and do this rather hard and maybe not the cleanest clean out, but to really support our community. And right now we're doing something where we have a household with 5 children has a voucher, which we all are few and far between. They were in danger of losing it if they didn't secure a place in 30 days. And we identified a vacant unit that's been vacant for I think, the better part of 2 years, maybe 3. And the landlord, of course, wants to repair it, just doesn't have the energy and the time to do it. We brought that to Project Action. There is a group volunteering and coming together right now to help clean it out, to help transfer some kitchen cabinets and sink and get the place rebuilt so that this household with a voucher can be housed ideally before the end of August, to secure that voucher and keep going with it. That is the work that we're doing at Project Action. I can answer questions if anyone has any, or I can pass them on.
That's amazing. Who coordinates all the volunteers? How does that?
It happens at the meeting, and so it basically is who's there, and if they say, we have this cleanup happening on Thursday next week, who's available? And people raise hands, they show up. We had staff that attended that. Our landlord liaison was the sort of coordinator for our area. But yeah, it's really who's there at the table. And then they put it out in the sort of mailing list to say, we have this project coming up, we need hands on deck.
It sounds awesome. I love these especially about on-person.
Yeah.
In terms of discussing individual cases, how often do participants sign confidentiality agreements? Are they reminded of the requirements?
If it's going to the project action table, so during, if it's going to the situation table, which is after project action. Project action is all general. Situation table is specific. They have to sign a release to say, we're going to be bringing your case to this table and discussing your particular situation, and they would have to sign off on it. And we are blessed with a police chief who really doesn't want to arrest his way out of this. He wants to see how we can support, and that I think really is important, because I know previous iterations of the police chief wouldn't have been as supportive or have been involved. So. Is there a grant that pays for it?
Yeah.
No. No. They were hopeful to get some of the opiate settlement money, and I feel like that didn't happen. There was it was coming, but then it got cut. I know they did apply for and get a AmeriCorps Vista, the ability to ask for an AmeriCorps Vista. As of right now, I don't believe we have one for that area, as well as our agency too. But, that's how it goes. But that would be support that we really could rely on.
Thank you. Are your cases coming from the situation table?
Yeah. Situation table, and then the it's being shared, of course, in other community meetings. So I feel like at our LHC we might bring up, if there's a case like that, or definitely at our local coordinated entry meetings or our housing task force meetings, where we can say, this case may be bigger than the housing task force. Let's bring this to the situation table, and then maybe we're in a situation. Yeah. If there's no other questions, I just have one other thing to say. Take a moment. I know it's awkward to celebrate, to say somebody's doing well. I would also encourage you to think about when you're doing well. This is what I say with my staff a lot, is to say, if you took a break and took a walk around the block, celebrate that and believe that that is good for you, and you have to do that for you. I'm not the best at doing that myself, but I always encourage everyone else to do it. So if you can't think of anything to celebrate something you did. Maybe you said no to joining another board. Maybe you, just like I said, took a swim instead of reading another email. So celebrate all of you who are doing this work, and all of us who are trying to show up every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee. That is awesome to hear about. Appreciate everybody so far. I'll go on my tiptoes now. All right, next we're going to hear from Lamoille. We're going to hear from Kim Asperger and Isaiah Parry on Lamoille Community House's recuperative care program. One more person. And Maggie Roper.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Kim Asperger, you already know that. I'm the Executive Director of Lamoille Community House and also the co-chair of the Lamoille Valley Housing Homelessness Coalition. That LHC, Katrina right there is the co-chair. from Capstone, and Maggie and Isaiah are the co-managers of our recuperative care program. So, we have it on our phone too, so we don't have to do this. I saw Molly doing it, I was like, oh, my neck cannot handle that. So, the recuperative care program is a 3-bed program for folks who have higher medical, mental health, or substance use needs while experiencing homelessness. So we're gonna do a little bit of background on how it came to be. So, a few years ago, there was the Homeless Health Equity Grant that I'm sure a lot of people here had. Maybe anybody else got one of those? Yeah, there you go. Okay. So we use that to hire a consultant to, identify the gaps for accessing healthcare for people who are unhoused. And one of the, glaringly obvious gaps was that people with higher medical needs were having a hard time sustaining whatever kind of housing they could access. So, obviously living in a tent when you have like an oxygen tank or need to have insulin or have wounds and need medical attention is really difficult. Sustaining those things in a hotel room by yourself is really difficult. Sustaining those things in a congregate shelter with a bunch of other people around you is also very difficult. So this gap was identified through a couple of initiatives, one, the Homeless Health Equity Grant, and also our Lemoyle Health Collaborative, which is a group of human services and health related, like our local MQHC and service providers there. So it was identified in a couple places and people were like, let's do something. So we did. And as the consultant that we had for the HHE grant shifted their focus to start helping build capacity. Like, what does the structure of this look like? Who's going to lead it? These are just, we can send out these slides too so you can read these on your own if I can read them all. They're just a couple of quotes from service providers when she was doing this research about the need. A lot of people returning to the emergency department of the hospital. I'm sure it's all stuff you all know. I probably don't need to go on and on about it because it happens everywhere. But just the people that are utilizing the ED a lot and then being discharged to unsafe places or to unmanageable places. And then, so this is just like a throwback slide. So we started drafting this in August of 2023. It was very early stages. We were calling it at the time Housing and Complex Needs Program. And then, sorry, these are kind of quick. And then, so this is kind of like a map of what we were thinking in the beginning. So like all of the referral partners, Copley, our hospital, all of these different human services and health organizations, what the program would do. So it would be a place where people can have all of their needs met in one location while being housed, and then ideally being discharged to whatever level of care they need after that. It didn't quite happen like this, but I'm just giving you a little bit of context because, that's what we were aiming for. And then just a list of our partners. So the Lemoyle Community House became the lead of the program. At the beginning, we were like, we don't know, we're all going to do this, but it always ends up, someone has to take the lead somewhere. And because we already had a staffing model for our regular shelter of staffing, 24/7, and we had that program and structure already in place, we kind of copy and pasted and adjusted a little bit. And then we had the capacity to hire a director that would then really go through and create the policies. Like they took our policies of the shelter and then they took some policies from the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council, and also a group of theirs is NIMARC, the National Institute for Medical Respite Care. So many words. So using all of that stuff in our policies and just kind of creating a new structure for this program. And then listed here are all our partners: Karina Howard Nickel Center, our DV Shelter, Capstone, United Way, VBH, our VCCI nurse, Lemoyle Health Partners, our recovery center, our local church, our hospital, and our mental health designated agency. I'm talking kind of fast. If you need me to slow down, say, just yell at me. So we launched it last July. After like about 6 to 8 months of like real like actual work. Like we had hired the director, I think 6 months prior to that, or I can't remember. No, maybe it was more like May. When did we hire Rebecca? Oh, no, this doesn't matter. It was a few months. It was pretty fast. And so I have links in here too that people could look at later when we send out the slides using the National Institute for Medical Respite Care framework. It's a really great framework to look through if you're interested in trying to launch some kind of program like this. They have also different tiers of like intensity for care, so you can pick the one that fits you. We chose one that was like less intense, and yeah, so then we hired a director to set up and launch the program. Our first year of funding was through HCBS grant, Home and Community-Based Services grant through AHS, which was held by Lamoille County Mental Health Services because they have that designation and subgranted to us. And we also had a CDC Health Disparities grant through VDH to help cover other costs like the utilities and the rent and the other stuff that the other cover. So we pieced it together for the first year, which was great. There was a lot of TA money in that grant too, so we were able to hire the National Institute for Medical Respite Care and have them, help us build this. Like we'd meet with them monthly, they would review what we're doing, give us advice, we had to do things like create the admissions criteria, which if you click that link later, the admissions flow chart is big and complicated. There's a lot of flow in that chart. So yeah, it was a lot of work. And then we were, at the same time, our community was working on creating an online referral tool. And we used the Find Help platform to create we were still in the works in that, but we used Find Help to make it a resource platform where people could go and find resources for what they needed. Similarly to what 211 does, but a little bit different. And then the back end of that website has referral tools where you can do closed loop referrals, see if people are, getting to the place that they're referred to, what the outcome is, how it's going, track all that data, where referrals are made. It's pretty cool. We're still working on that. But we used RCP, our program, to be like one of the first programs to utilize this tool as a referral, like use that referral tool as the access point for the program, which has worked out really well. You guys like that? Okay, cool. There were some bugs. It was a little weird at first because there's like screening questions and then you have to upload different things, but we figured it out eventually. We're getting there. All right. Those two, they will talk eventually too. Don't worry, it's not just me. Actually, maybe this is the good time. I'm gonna switch over to that because I was like, I'll do the background and then you guys talk about the actual program. So they're gonna talk a little bit about what the program looks like, the structure, staffing, all that stuff. Hi everyone. You gotta get so close. So our program is located in two-bedroom apartments that are open to each other. So there's 3 bedrooms for guests and then one that's a staff bedroom / office. Guests have access to both kitchens, both bathrooms, and it's staffed 24/7. So we have one staff member there at all times. The door is always locked so that, close out the outside. And ideally, folks stay for 8 weeks, although sometimes it takes longer than that to find a safe place for them to transition into. We work with partners to coordinate services for folks who are there, and home health is often included in that, so people can get their medical needs met in the program without having to go anywhere. Do you have more to add?
All right, so previously to being manager, I was considered service coordinator. So it was my job to work with guests coming in. Occasionally we would have guests that didn't have health insurance at all, which is like really hard to work with health partners to get them up with their recovery if they don't have that. So I help them get in with Medicaid. I help guests get Meals on Wheels, just all of these sort of needs that someone needs to live met. That's a lot of phone calls and paperwork, which is very difficult for people who are on house. And I've found just by being someone who's willing to speak with them on the phone that these processes can be worked with very quickly.
And if they did all the same things I did by themselves, they get nowhere. And so just by offering that service, we've helped guests like make a lot of progress with like the services that they've been able to accrue. And if you go on to the next slide, we will share. It's not the next slide, but there are success stories of them.
So this shows sort of, it's like a pie chart of what has brought folks in our first year. So you can see there's like a variety of reasons that people were admitted to our program. Some of them were post-operative, some folks were referred to us through behavioral health stuff. We have a guest who's currently being treated for cancer. And on average, the length of stay was about 61.2 days, which is right around our 8-week target. But we have had some folks stay all the way up to 184 days, so it really has varied. So we were able to help 9 people in the first pilot year. That has now expanded to 11 people in the past month and a half or so. We've served a wide range of ages, but mostly older Vermonters. So you can see that the ages have ranged from 27 to 83. Right, so I was a staff member before co-managing, and I would say the average age is in the 60s, which honestly, before I got into this work, I was not expecting that. It was very eye-opening. Out of all the folks that we've served, I think we've figured out 77% of them transitioned into a safer, stable place from our program. You can read on the screen where some of them went. We have partnered clearly with the Lamoille Community House, and we have transitioned people from our program into the main shelter, and then some of those folks even then transitioned into stable housing outside of that.
And then also linked here, because I know everyone's gonna click all these links when they get it, is our, the National Institute for Medical Respite Care did an evaluation as part of their contract with us. So it's linked there, and you can read our evaluation. It talks about like, you know, what the challenges were, what the successes were, because there were challenges. It wasn't all easy, obviously. A lot of our challenges were around like, you know, partner communication and engagement. So like we had a lot of partner engagement in the beginning, but as soon as we kind of took the lead, it kind of fell off a little bit. We did have partner meetings every month and people were engaged there, but when it comes to bringing in services from other partners, we're still working on that. We do have like an MOU with our recovery center to have them bring in someone to come help with folks, like a recovery coach if that's necessary, and we're trying to just build up more of those MOUs with different partners to make sure that those services are accessible, and like how are they accessible, when are they accessible, you know, by what means, that kind of stuff. So that part still needs a little bit of strengthening, but we do have a lot of the support of our community and all the partners in our housing coalition. Yes, but all that is in the evaluation. It's just, you know, a long document. I wasn't gonna put it all in here. And then if you go to the next slide, there's success stories. I'll tell the first one. You guys can tell the other two. Okay. The first one was someone who was a stroke victim that had been referred to RCP from the ED. They had been, you know, visited the ED often and was having a mental health crisis at the same time. So when that person got to RCP, they you know, they were connected with a doctor and had all the, you know, created a care plan for like how they were going to manage what was going on in their life and get their mental health more stable before, you know, taking the next steps. That person then was the first RCP guest actually, and then they transitioned to the main shelter where they were also very successful. They because of their stroke, lost use of half of their one side of their body and had to get adaptive equipment for their car. So they were able to, you know, on their own, like find a grant to get that done, got lessons to relearn to drive, and got their car back, and then eventually found housing as well. So like really amazing, strong individual that overcame a lot, and had the support to do it. So we're really happy for this person.
The next person we'd like to speak about came in post-op from gallbladder surgery, and they came in kind of a rough shape. They had roots in Vermont, but came in from out of state, and we were able to help them connect with their family and the support system. And in their time in the program, I was able to help them connect with income subsidy housing, and now they're in their own apartment, which is probably one of our larger successes we've had.
And then another guest that moved to RCP came from a condemned and uninhabitable home where it just was not safe for them to live in there. That they owned the home though, and they had a lot of unmanaged health needs. So through the help at RCP, they were able to, you know, understand that maybe going back to that home was not an option anymore. It's not livable, it's not safe. So they were able to sell it, sell the property, and use that money to pay off debt, and then have money to then rent an apartment. So, and then stay closer to an apartment that was closer to where all their new medical needs were going to be met. So they're in the community where their doctor provider is located, and yeah, so they're doing well in that apartment as well. And then this is just some things that like our partners have said about our program and what it has done. It has filled gaps, it's provided a safe discharge placement for people to discharge into the program. It's an important part of the housing transition process and supports to address health needs that aren't really available in other places. Our last slide is the next steps. So we have 6 more months of funding till December, so that's fun. And it's been kind of like that the whole time. Like when we first got the grants, like we got 6 months. Oh no, we're doing an extension. Yeah, you got another 6 months. Now you have 6 months again. Probably not gonna get an extension this time, at least that's what we're being told. That's always what we're told. But we're gonna try to find funding to continue it somewhere. If not, we'll have to pause the program and hopefully just take what we've learned and restart it at a future date. But we'll see. The program does cost around $600,000 a year to run, but which is kind of pricey for a 3-bed program. But we could, if we had a better location, take the same staffing model and serve more people with the same budget. We just don't have another location to do it in. So if we found a better space where we could serve 6 to 8 people, maybe 10, that's pushing it maybe a little bit because people do have higher needs. So it is more intensive for the staff. Our staff are non-clinical support staff, so they're not doing any medical stuff. They're just there to support and connect with medical folks if needed. But there is a lot more needs, especially yeah. And then you can learn about it on our website, and then also we're just like reassessing the need too. Like 8 weeks is very short. We all know that's ridiculous. And like we are seeing a lot of aging Vermonters. We have people that are like up to 83 years old. We have people that are very frail that are awaiting. Like we have someone right now who's waiting to get into an assisted living place, and it's very close. And we're like, oh, what? But it takes time, and we're reassessing if this program needs to be longer term. Still a recuperative care program, but longer term while people are waiting for those beds to open. Because where else do they go? A lot of times they transfer to shelter, and they're able to manage their needs there. But if they're a little bit too great, then it just becomes a little tricky. So we're reassessing things and seeing where we can go, and hoping some money will fall out of the sky so we can continue, and a new building. I did also print out some little just fact sheets that we can pass around in case you want them. And that's it. Any questions? We have one that is getting SOAR trained right now. Yeah. They're our housing navigator at the main shelter, but we could, yeah, she could help with that too. All right. We have currently 8 staff. So we have a couple, like 2 or so that are full-time, well, including, well, you guys on, 1 full-time, oh. 1 full-time and then a lot of part-time folks. So, yeah, and we have a couple that are just like backup staff that will come and fill shifts. And we do cross-train our staff from the main shelter and RCP so people can pick up shifts at either location. Taylor?
Are you RNs?
No.
And then, do you have people staying longer in this model because you have more discharge? Like, would you discharge to shelter homelessness?
We haven't had to yet, right? No, and no, so it's hard to know. I don't think we've had people stay here longer than in our main shelter. Our main shelter is also like a 6-month stay with possible 3-month extensions as long as people are engaging. So that is naturally just a longer availability, and people have been staying there for a while. So I don't think we've had people stay at RCP longer than our regular shelter yet. But we would, if someone is like recouped from whatever it is that brought them there, we will transfer them to our main shelter and then they can stay there longer. And then so if someone is getting to that point, like we did have someone that was like, fine, you know, they were healthy now, and we were like, gotta move along. And you know, they were kind of resistant to it, and then we were able to help them find a GA hotel placement at the time, which now, you know.
But just to elaborate that for a second, 8 weeks is a speculated stay time. Most of our guests have exceeded that, particularly for this specific reason, because we're not motivated to just send people out with nowhere to go.
Especially because that'll exacerbate like whatever medical condition they have they're just gonna get sick again and come back. Oh my gosh. I think you were first. No. There was one around, okay.
Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question?
Oh,
Couldn't hear the question.
she asked how we've navigated working with home health and hospice around regulations around Medicaid and Medicare. Is that right?
So in Loyal County, our home health and hospice is located very close to us, and they work in partnership with our program and in the Loyal Health Partners, which is the greater conglomerate of medical establishments near us. And they sort of work with the patient's insurances probably. We're a non-clinical facility that just sort of, for lack of better words, facilitates their operations at our program.
Yeah, and in the first iteration of this, we have an MOU with Loyal Home Health and Hospice, and we actually contracted a case manager from there to do case management with us, but then that designation got moved to another organization, so that position ended with their organization. That's when we created a service coordinator in-house, and that's what Isaiah was in that position at the time. So we kind of just went with the flow and figured it out as we went, but now they do just, bill through the person's insurance. So we have a wait list. On our flyers I'm going to send out, there's a QR code, and it's also in the link in the thing to write to our referral form. We do encourage people to send referrals even if we're full, because it's really important to track the data of how many people we would have if we could have the beds. But so we don't currently have any openings. But. Like after they discharge? Not a ton, but usually they're connected with like either home health or somebody else like that we know, and we can check in on folks, and we do kind of know where people are since we've had so many. Okay, yes, so we did do some of it for the survey. Good thing Nicole's here to fill in the gaps in my memory. Yeah, so we did do that for our evaluation, and we do want to keep doing it to make sure. Yeah.
One question. One of the things that comes to mind is you mentioned the aging population. I think all of us are probably feeling the depth of that. You have one data point that says you have one person to advance to a higher level of care. Does that mean that person, when you have some type of agreement with palliative care, hospice care, that type of thing? Have you had that experience?
So that case wasn't related to age and stuff. It was more of a mental health, higher level of care. But we don't have like specific agreements with other things. We just kind of find placements as we can. I feel like we're probably going over time, but it's okay. I don't think they can. I mean, not, but we do have, our hospital is not. No. Copley is a partner in like helping, a referral partner for sure, and that help with like the beginning setup stuff, but not financially. So we are working on getting data on like how much money we're saving hospitals. We don't have that data right now today, but we are working on it because we have saved several hospitals many days of hospitalization. Many. Not just Copley. Anyway. I think we should stop. I've been talking a long time. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. That was really fascinating to hear about and exciting to hear about how successful it's been. So we just have a little bit of time before we head over to lunch. So we're going to hear from Brattleboro, which is the Wyndham South Local Housing Coalition, from Marion Major on Housing Coalition of Southeastern Vermont's Housing Development Subcommittee.
All right, hi everyone. I know I'm your last stop before lunch, so I'll keep it pretty succinct. The Southeast Vermont Housing Coalition really covers the very southeast corner of the state. I'm not the normal voice that would come to this. The co-chairs and the appointed voice both couldn't make it, so I'm here representing a subcommittee of the Housing Coalition. But before I dive into the housing development work, I just want to put forward a couple humble brags about the broader coalition. We recently hosted a housing resource fair that was really well attended and met a really broad variety of local needs, from like, I need a home, where can I apply, I want to develop, I have, what are the services, etc. And a lot of folks showed up. It was really exciting. And then also our housing, our Homelessness Awareness Day event was organized in this group and was completely organized by folks who have or are experiencing homelessness, and was led by those voices. So I think that was another tremendous success. So about a year ago, we kind of recognized that there was a big gap in our local housing coalition about housing development, creating more affordable housing in our communities. We had done a lot of resource sharing, but a lot of that was sort of like preaching to the choir, So we were really excited to create something that was more action-oriented. So a year ago, I kind of just herded some cats, brought folks into the room, and this group is really broad. We have, let's see, planners from municipal level, volunteer board level, regional level. We have private developers, nonprofit, public housing authorities. We have economic development folks, early child education advocacy folks. It's a pretty broad swath of folks coming together and saying, yeah, we want to do an action-oriented group. How does that work? So really quickly, we came to the agreement that we wanted to identify very specific strategies for how the larger coalition can act together to show up and encourage development in our communities, not just Brattleboro, but the surrounding communities. So that's what we've sort of done. And a couple of successes is that we've been able to, 3 projects have been able to move through permitting and avoid appeals because of the voices that showed up and showed up positively for each other. We've engaged a little bit in media, and we've been able to do some important resource share across towns and across communities too. And we've had the opportunity to address commonly repeated misinformation even within this own group. It's so interesting. So some of the challenges are, it's a broad tent and it's really interesting to navigate. Everyone agrees that we need more housing. The strategy of how exactly that looks is not always the same. So it's very interesting to navigate the conversation. The win of having voices show up was a result of putting it out to the broader coalition, but I don't think we've really gotten our feet underneath ourselves yet for folks to have that muscle memory of, okay, I got this one notification, I will show up. So it actually took a lot of groundwork and reaching out to individuals and saying, no, we really need you here. You need to have a positive voice, and it does make a difference. And we've had results that show that that's the case. So I think we're a little bit further along that road. And that's kind of the gist of it. It's exciting work, it's interesting work, and I'm excited to get it a little bit more underway. Are there any questions? That was really brief. Cool.
Thank you so much, Marion. So we are at our lunch hour. We're going to hear from Upper Valley after lunch. So it looks like we've got our sandwiches, chips, salad, and dessert over here on the side of the hall. For those of you with allergies, there is a smaller table that has some of the allergy restrictions, but we'll be over there to help you figure it out. And there's and the vegan wraps are on the bigger table. So we will figure it all out. If you have severe allergies, the suggestion is to go to the dining hall, so we will head over there if you have severe allergies. And all right, we are breaking for lunch, and we will be back here at 1 p.m. We are going to get rolling here in a moment with Upper Valley. We hear from Latanya Johnson from Upper Valley Haven.
Very good at standing in one place. So I'm going to try to move around with the mic a little bit if I can. And I'm really not used to using a mic because I don't typically have to. Everybody can hear me. But it's nice to be with you today. And I'm super thankful to be presenting on behalf of our local coalition, the Upper Valley Housing Coalition. Some of our constituents are in the room and some of them could be with us. So I get to be their voice today. So I'm super excited about that. And I have to say that I'm sitting at a pretty great table. I've been enjoying the conversation, and I hope you guys have had the benefit of networking with your table. I'm sitting with some brainiacs, and so I feel great about that. And it gave me a little thought about what it looks like to cultivate creative solutions through partnership. And so that's what I want to present on. And in this lineup, you'll see a few programmatic efforts that are partnerships, either from our housing coalition, the Haven. We benchmark. I appreciate you hearing your presentation. Sorry, I forgot your name, about community policing. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in the area about that. But overall, what I was hoping to represent is that, as all of us know, it takes a village of people to really bite out of this work. And we are so fortunate in the Upper Valley to partner with, think through, pull together groups of people who really feel as passionately as all of us do, to think about creative solutions outside of the box and how we can come together to do this work. And so this presentation is about highlighting opportunities that we've had the privilege of being a part of. Myself, I am LaTanya Johnson from Upper Valley Haven. I'm the Director of Community Programs and Sheltering. And my counterpart who leads our local coalition is Linda Anderson. She couldn't be with us today, but a lot of this information came from her too. So. The first thing I wanted to highlight is that last year in October, our coalition came together, and in the previous year, to do a landlord's breakfast. And that was a collection of landlords who we were able to pull together at a local spot and talk through what partnering with landlords looks like. All of us have to have local landlords and really partner together with them to support them. Many people are interested in creating affordable housing, but they don't know how to get to that space. And they're concerned. They have concerns that we have concerns. Similar concerns about how to support people who have complex histories. And so we were able to do that with a lot of success, and we're looking to do that as a local housing coalition together through all of our regional partnership to bring together both a virtual and an in-person event, again, not in the winter, but probably in the early spring. The next slide is largely about one of the things that we feel passionate about and I'm not going to show the video because I don't think we have time, but one of the things we feel passionate about at the Haven is advocacy and education, and a lot of our partnerships are just about that. How do we educate our local entities, healthcare, substance use providers, community partners, and our neighbors about the work that we're doing. And we recently, I just wanted to highlight a project that Matt Taylor at the Haven took a large portion of his time to create. And it was about a person with lived experience in poverty coming and touring our facility and educating people in the Upper Valley about what we do. And so it takes community, neighbors, lived experience professionals, and people who are doing the work to educate about that. And so we're super excited about that project. Next. One of the other programs that we're really proud of that have just gotten off to a pilot year is called House Calls. As all of you know, health issues come up in our population, access issues. We have people walk through our doors all the time who do not have insurance, who haven't seen a PCP in years, who have need for wound care, who need to get connected to SUD services, substance use disorder. And so one of the partnerships that I've had the pleasure of working on is one with DH, so Dartmouth Health. And we have a small group of PCPs and family practitioners, as well as community health workers, who we've been working with to provide access on site. And so we're calling it house calls because they come to our house to provide services. And we really love that. It's been going over well. We've had 12 initial visits. And the goal of this program is not long-term care, it's connected care. Sometimes we just need, as you all know, work in service coordination and other forms of case management. You just need a solution for today. And you need to get the person to the next step. And so we use these providers in a way and partner with them to do health histories, to bring them in to give initial prescriptions or bridge prescriptions until they can get to long-term providers. And they can be insured or uninsured, it doesn't matter. And we've been working on, and we'll continue to work on this year as we are looking forward to expanding our shelter services, expanding this program so we can provide more on-site care, and we don't have to miss things like wound care when people walk into our doors. And so we're looking at ways to fund that program long-term and to get more providers interested in providing services to them. So that's been pretty exciting. This next slide, I can't take credit for Kayla, actually, who's with me from the Haven, creates all of our data. Data is so important in what we do. We partnered with Grafton County and the city of Lebanon to do our warming shelter last year and the year before. And these are some of the numbers, and it's been a huge success. It's outside of the box thinking. It means partnering with New Hampshire and Vermont and providing both fiscal and other types of supports. And we successfully, on average, started about 14 people per night from January of this year until April. That represents about 72 unique guest or households over the course of that. And we partnered with a lot of people to support that particular program. Anywhere from local taxi agencies, making sure people were aware of the advanced transient system in our community when people came. If we couldn't house them, getting them into alternative care through our local hotel stays. Go to the next one. And this slide just kind of represents where we were able to track that those individuals went to in our community after they left us. Not everyone participated, but about 45 households of the 72 different individuals participated. Some went into institutional care, some went into rental subsidies, others went into temporary situations, as many of our transient community folks do. But we were able to track them, and it's just been pretty profound, and that partnership is growing. We will likely do that again this year. Next slide. One of the other interesting partnerships, as you all know, with the administrative changes, some of the challenges that we're experiencing there, other people have to stand up in our community to do some of this work. And we have been really fortunate at the Haven, also in another county, to partner with faith-based community to do special work. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of those partnerships. One is Charlie Cloth, and that's right here in Randolph, if I understand correctly. And it is a one bed, one night place where people come in, largely staffed through volunteers, and church community support. But that partnership has been really successful and it's ongoing, and they're looking for other ways to continue that program. And there's been other communities in the Randolph community also to stand up and consider if they can shelter as well. So that's a unique opportunity. People can stay at that particular facility 28 days, and it has been continuously rented or with overnight stays throughout the warming season, and continues. As many of you know, we have in September of 24 that Haven opened in partnership with Vermont State Housing, Twin Pines Housing, and our local faith-based community right next door. We've all partnered together to serve this apartment complex that opened in September. And we've been housing 18 households there with service coordination from our crew, and the faith-based community has been instrumental in supporting the community lives of the individuals there. They've offered services, ice cream socials. They've been on site at memorials and different things that we've commemorated for the community. They've just been wrapped their arms, so to speak, around this community. And as you know, most of our people come with not connected support. And a part of living well and having a good quality of life is having other people outside of us to support you, a place where you can go that's safe. And this community has been safe and affirming for our community, and not just the people that are living in that particular facility. They have done anything from support events, house events or host events to financially help fund part of that. And so this has been an exceptional partnership with the faith community locally. And earlier, there was a great presentation about what we call community policing. And this is kind of new to our area, but not necessarily new to the state of Vermont, and definitely not new to the area. You can go to the next slide. It's an area of community engagement that has a little history. If I was to present on anything, it would be that this is not probably a new concept, but the idea behind the police department and other social service entities is a historical one that says that the police are not the only people that are responsible for things that are happening in our community. And so there is an acknowledgement that it takes our neighbors, it takes service providers, health people, and to come together and create some organizational structure to problem solving. And so we benchmarked, actually, if you go to the next slide, Project Action, with a lot of great success that you've already heard about, so I won't belabor you there. But when we think about communities that have done this well and are actually progressing in this idea of community policing, so to speak, Project Action comes to mind for us. If you go to the next slide. Out of that, this year, the beginning of the year in 2025, the police commissioner formed a group of individuals, both officers, recovery worker, as well as a social worker on their inside team to come together and provide our community with some statistics. We call that heart stat. We have monthly meetings with service providers, law enforcement, social work, and recovery entities come together, and they present some of the crimes or things that aren't really crimes, actually. They receive a lot of calls that are not crime-related at all. But who do you call? You call the police, right? Because we think as a community that the police are responsible for all things safety. And what they're finding is that some of their most high-traffic calls are coming from people who need mental health support, people who need substance use support, and they don't do that primarily. And so it's an opportunity for us to kind of know if there are people in our communities already who we're servicing, who need additional support. And it's kind of a call to action to our local service providers to think together about what are some solutions for those individuals, or if we have any. It's given us the opportunity to continue in our local LIC group to talk about those cases that are super complex, that none of us are able to really serve well. All of us have a few of those cases that are super challenging, but it gives us the opportunity to come together, and it's really an invitation to think about solutions that are outside of the box. So that's one group that's formed out of that. And then the other group that began in 2025 is more inclusive of our community, including our neighbors and other professionals who might interact with this population. And it's just called the Public Safety Coalition. They recently started meeting in April, and it is a group that right now is largely just working on what it looks like to have a quality of life in the Hartford area. What are particular issues that are coming up that everyone's concerned about, including us as providers, including neighbors, and service providers. So what are some issues that are common to our community that we might be able to put our heads together and look for some activated action? They're meeting monthly, and if you go to the next slide. And out of that, for us, the beginning stages of this conversation has been residents that have identified the same concerns that many of you have, substance use, harm reduction. What is harm reduction? And what does that look like? How are individuals intake to our particular shelters and communities? Are there enough shelters in our community, right? But this is an educational group, and so a lot of the things that are coming up for them are misunderstandings that our community has about the population in which we serve. So it's an opportunity to talk about these things on a broader scope. Mental health in camping areas or the lack thereof. They're meeting monthly in subcommittees as well as task force to address the 4 subject areas: neighborhood safety, substance use, housing, and accountability. These 2 groups are really in their beginning planning stages with the hopes that they can come together and problem solve for our community and be more actionable in the future. I think the goal currently is education and advocacy and awareness so that everybody's on the same page about the problems that we're experiencing and the help that is already existing in our community and maybe the gaps of care. And so that's a big area. I think one of the other things that's happening now as we're beginning this conversation is trust building. Does the community trust us to provide services that reduce harm in our communities, but maybe that resolve our issues? So that comes up a lot. Transparency. So the community is experiencing this, and it's not just our community. It's profound. It might be throughout the whole state. Here's what the policies are. And so a lot of trust work, a lot of education work and advocacy, and I'm looking forward to where this opportunity takes us. So this is just a few highlights from our broader region, and I thank you for your time and appreciate all the collaborations that are represented in this thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Latanya. I am feeling very inspired hearing about all the different things happening in all of your areas. I think it is very a positive feeling coming out today for me and hopefully for you all as well. Next, we're going to hear from Jess Brock from Franklin Grand Isle. And she's at Franklin Grand Isle Community Action at CPOEO.
Everybody. Aw, that's great after lunch. I'm having the best time. It is really fun to be in a space where we're hearing that there are so many great examples of things that are working. And communities coming together, and a real theme that I've heard repeatedly is across-agency collaboration. I'm Jess Graff. I am the director of Franklin Grand Isle Community Action, which is a program of CPOEO, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity. And is it good? All right. I don't generally get accused of not being loud enough. I know, it's true. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be very quick. I just wrote some notes to talk about what's working in Franklin and Grand Isle County, and I was thinking about what's working over the last 12 months, and there's so many great examples. But what's been really fun for us in the last 12 months is just how well coordinated entry has been working. And in part, that's because we have had the opportunity of new housing in St. Albans, really specifically over the last year, including the development of over 100 new units, with another 33 coming on board shortly, and another 100 planned just in a specific one additional project for next year. So it's been a time when we've had ample resources. It was also a time when we had ample staffing for services. In the past 12 months, a household experiencing homelessness with children is connected to a service provider the same day, for the most part, that they are, I don't know, slides, that they come into coordinated entry, or even walk into our office, which has just really been wonderful. And the success rate that we have of housing those families at times has been 80%. So that's also been really wonderful. I threw together some coordinated coordinated entry, like data about how this work is going. And it made sense when I was writing it, but I'm not a math person, so it didn't make sense to me when I was reading it. I'm going to try. So over the past 12 months, we have had 338 households, which was a total of 545 people who were enrolled in our coordinated entry system. In that same time frame, we exited about 56%, and 42% of the total participants moved into permanent living situations with the system themes of permanent living situations. In fact, our total, looking at just those who exited, was 74% exiting to permanent situations. And of those, we supported 173 people moving into a unit with some sort of ongoing subsidy, whether an embedded project-based subsidy or voucher. And 45% of those that exited into permanent situations. So 56% of total exits. That still makes no sense. Okay, but we've been able to do this because we've had sort of this perfect collaborative mix of a landlord liaison who has been remarkable. She's really been able to work with assisting case managers and property managers in helping to make that process of matching tenant to unit more successful and less of a burden for the case manager and less irritating to the landlord or property manager. And she has been able to do resource fairs for landlords, she actually reads Craigslist and all those places every day, identifies units, lets all of the case managers know about that. But she also cold calls all of the landlords and introduces herself and gets to know them. And so now she has dozens of landlords who come to her even when they're not required to with a homelessness preference. It's been really helpful. We've just been really lucky that the housing that has been developed has also been housing that has come with homelessness preferences. That's just been a really important tool for us. There were a million things I could have picked in Franklin County as an example, but I picked this one on purpose. And I picked it because I think that we're moving into a more uncertain future. And I picked it because it's an example of we know what works. We know how to do this work. We know how to put the pieces together. We have systems in place that are tying funding of housing to coordinated entry. We know what positions we need to make those pieces fit together. And I think we need to hold to that. And if the next few years involve more advocacy to get what we need in place, so be it. But at least we have at our core the knowledge that we are experts at our craft. We know what we need to do, and that we know the tools that we need to do.
Awesome, thank you, Jess. Next, we are hearing from Bennington. Mary Garish, I think Roxanne and Chris are not here today. Okay.
They're here in spirit.
Yes. So we're hearing about Bennington Housing Solutions Team Expanding Public Safety, Dignity, and Sustainability for Bennington residents.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. And yes, Carissa and Roxanne, we had a rather an emergency at the shelters in Bennington today. So they expressed their sorrow that they can't be here, but they did want me to mention that our outreach team in Bennington, which has been composed of lots of different members of our Housing Solutions Group, including Turning Point, Sunrise Family Resource Center, the Bennington County Coalition for the Homeless, and what used to be Shires, but is now Cornerstone. They have had very good success in putting together a lot of programs, housing a lot of people, which in Bennington, I want to acknowledge that everybody has different demographics. When I look around the room where people are from, in Bennington, we have very little housing right now for anybody, even if they can pay whatever, let alone folks who can't pay. So that's a good thing. And they wanted me to lift up that our semi-annual program that we have with prospective tenants and landlords, which is basically 3 sessions, several hours a day. It includes lunch, which is donated by a lot of different community partners. For the folks who are coming, who are prospective tenants, it includes, if they come to all 3 sessions, a gift card. And the best thing is that one of the sessions is about preparing to rent. Another one is about legal rights, both for landlords and tenants. And landlords and tenants are coming to these sessions. And the third one is basically a landlord discussion session where people get to say to the landlords, well, what do you want in a tenant? And we've had great success with that. The last one we had, there were 3 tenants who had been already turned down by the same landlord, but he didn't know it because, of course, looking at a written application, you're not sitting there talking to a family with adorable kids, right? And so they wound up running from the same landlord. So those have all been great successes. And we're looking forward to an even bigger success as we try and make sure that everyone in the Bennington area lives a dignified, sustainable, and safe life. Now, we want to reclaim the topic of public safety, and I know others of you have talked about working with your police departments in public safety. I am not referring to our police department. I think we have a different dynamic in some areas. What I am referring to is the really traditional definition of public safety, which is not just being safe from violence, but it's living a dignified life, having the respect for each other in your neighborhood, coming together to solve problems. And so that is what we're going to try and do. So this fall, we're going to invite more people to what we currently call our Housing Solutions Group, which is not coordinated entity, that means separately, because it's a whole different set of releases, right? And confidentiality. This is, and we've had more and more people joining, and it's a group of folks that come together, and we have had virtual meetings because of COVID, once a month, and we're planning to start having in-person or hybrid meetings, in-person and virtual. And it includes some landlords, some town people, some town government people, a lot of service providers of various things, whether it's mental health or physical health. But what we want to do is we want to expand that out, because what we've got now, and don't pay attention to my inability to make our work. This is a wheel, and it is the wheel of a dignified, safe life. And it's got some spokes, so if it's rolling down the road of life, there is a lot of room here for it to hit a rock and collapse, right? And I think that's what, thank you so much. I'm sorry about this, guys. I'm not very well prepared on electronics. And so this is going to hit a rock somewhere along the way, and this is going to collapse. But if we start putting more spokes in there, there's a lot less room for it to collapse. So what we're going to do, thank you very much. What we're going to do, you don't have to endure my black art any longer. What we're going to do is we're going to have all different organizations, people, and types of organizations. So we're going to include all different types of education, whether it's higher ability, whether it's Dale, whether it's technical school, whether it's community college, whether it's the elementary schools and the middle schools and the high schools, all of which have workers who deal with kids who are living without housing, right? And then we're going to have all the food resources, all the people from all the food banks, from the free medical clinic, as well as the hospital, as well as United Counseling Services, as well as a couple of private practitioners. We're also going to have substance misuse counselors. We're even going to have a group of folks who love to do fundraising. Because everybody always needs people to do fundraising, right? And we're going to all meet, and we're calling this right now a community solutions team. But we're going to have the meeting and see what people want to call it. What we want, we even want to include, like Vermont Interfaith Action is setting up warming shelters in Bennington this year. We want to include faith communities. We want to include art and music. We want to include everything that makes people feel like they have a life that's more enriched. And so I'm really hoping this is going to be a great project, and I have no idea how long I've been talking, probably too long. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, great. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mary. I love the spokes on the wheel. That's very cool. All right, next is going to be Northeast Kingdom. Orleans, Northern Essex, and Caledonia, Southern Essex. We're going to have Casey Winterson from NECA, and Chris Mitchell from AHS, and the Joint NEK Fund, the Homeless Health Equity, and Pilot Transportation Program supported by their LHC.
Chris Mitchell. Speak a little closer. Cool. So, Northeast Kingdom. I'm sure some of you have been, some of you haven't, but it's the most beautiful part of the state. Feel free to come up and visit if you have a green license plate. Otherwise, anyway, so the Northeast Kingdom consists of Orleans, Essex, and Caledonia County. It's 2,000 square miles, and 21% of the state's land. We have about 65,000 residents with the highest rates of poverty and lowest household income brackets. Sure. And about 175 people experiencing homelessness. So as you can imagine, the vast sort of landscape makes engaging with folks who are unhoused pretty difficult at times. So our local housing coalition works as a combined coalition as opposed to having two separate, distinct housing coalitions because many of our providers work across the entire region. So in 2022, NECA was awarded the grant for homeless health equity. And to sort of kick that off, Casey and I and some others really did some research to figure out what are some of the main things that we want to focus on for folks experiencing homelessness in our area. Housing, no brainer, transportation and healthcare access seem to be three of the bigger sort of things that we wanted to do more work on. So at that time, our local housing coalition was struggling a bit with engagement. We had a handful of people popping in and out, and I'm guessing that's something that everyone here has sort of experienced from time to time. So we thought, we have some money, and what a great opportunity to maybe get some more engagement for folks because we have an opportunity to have a tangible outcome. So as a result of that, we came up with 3 potential projects. We were thinking a pocket-sized resource guide. I'm sure many folks have done that. We thought about bringing healthcare access to our congregate shelter. And lastly, increasing transportation access for folks at our shelter, but also throughout our community. So as a process, we really engaged the local housing coalition and dedicated half of each of our meetings to start working on this grant. So we broke up into
subcommittees again to see what we had available to us, what we really needed, and to really start focusing on solutions.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me? There we go. Let's be really close. All right. So, like Chris said, we broke into 3 committees, and one of the committees was based in transportation, and that group mainly focused on like asset mapping of our area, a needs assessment of things that were going on and what the needs were on the ground, and identification of possible solutions. As Chris said, the Northeast Kingdom is the most beautiful part of the state. However, we do not have any transportation in the Northeast Kingdom. We have the rural communities transportation, but because of how rural the Northeast Kingdom is, that doesn't actually connect our 2 hub areas. So St. Johnsbury is a hub and Newport's a hub. Those 2 aren't connected by the RCT bus, which creates a huge challenge for folks going north and south between the 2 local housing areas, but also the 2 hospital districts, the 2 state districts. So that was really part of the idea, was how do we, lean into transportation, knowing that right now there aren't funds on the ground to be able to support the whole Northeast Kingdom, but really think about where we can lean into that will provide the most kind of impact for the folks that we're specifically working on our towards with this grant, which was the homeless population in the Northeast Kingdom. So the Homeless Health Equity Grant really helped us in this, like Chris said, allowed us to leverage dollars to be able to do some of that work. So looking at these kind of 3 areas of things that we started doing, we started to recognize the needs, which we all knew what was going on, but we did some outreach with folks experiencing homelessness, as well as just general community members around, like, what is the need that you have currently as it relates to transportation? Number 1 was, I need to get to Newport, which unfortunately, that was not something that we had enough money to be able to solve, and it's still in process of being solved by our local transporter, RCT. But what we did hear folks say is, on Saturdays, I have, if I need to go to the store to grab something, or get my prescription, or go see some family in, Lindenville, for instance, which is just 5 minutes up the road, I can't do that because there's not a bus on Saturdays. And specifically thought about how challenging it is for folks who are at the shelter at Moose River, which is our Congress shelter in St. Jay, to be able to get, essentially Moose River is on the outskirts of St. Johnsbury, and like to get into town to be able to do the thing is a bit of a hike, and you have to take Route 2. And in the winter, Route 2 is no place you want to be. Just generally walking on roads in the winter is not a fun time, but Route 2 is just a lot of fast-moving traffic and just not a safe place to be, especially when folks are trying to ride bikes in the snow and the whole night. So recognizing the need, people need to get to places on the weekend. We looked at our local assets and said, okay, RCT has a bus line that already operates this, but it only does it Monday through Friday. And then we have our local taxi provider that has 3 cars, and is impossible to get a hold of on the first day. But we have them still. And then our volunteers. We have volunteers that are often willing to drive folks from around if they have advance notice. They're not the folks that you're calling at the 11th hour saying, hey, I need you to drive to West Lib, drop this person off, although we did have some of those folks that did step up. So looking at those assets, we started to come up with some ideas of proposals for how do we solve this problem. Specifically looking at the problem that we could solve, which was the transportation on Saturdays on this specific route. So we started talking with RCT, our provider, our transportation provider, to see what it would look like if they opened up a Saturday route for this bus, for this one particular route that they operate, which is called their J route between St. Johnsbury and Lindenville. It's very creative. And then we also talked about currently folks at Moose River have to walk down, not an expansive walk, but it is a hill, and in the winter it is a treacherous hill, to get to Route 2 to catch the bus there. And we said, what can we do, RCT, to be able to get a bus stop at Moose River, at the shelter, in a place that like is not really a great turnaround point for a bus, but they worked with us and said, okay, we won't do it every time. We're not gonna like come up that road at every point, but what we will do is if you give us a call on the next time that we go through on that route, we'll pick the person up, and then we'll drop them off after when they're on the bus. They just have to let us know that they're going to the shelter, which was perfect. It was a perfect solution to a problem that kind of met the needs of everyone without having to, I don't know if anyone is a community transport provider, probably going to butcher what you do, but apparently, in order to get a new bus stop, you have to go through the process of going to the town meeting of the towns that it's going to support, St. Johnsbury or Pennsylvania. You have to get approval from the town meeting in order to be able to do that. It's just like an act of Congress to get a bus stop. So we work the system as we do in the Northeast. And then the other piece of this was partnering with Town Taxi to transport folks Monday through Saturday, because if you were trying to go anywhere in the Northeast Kingdom on a Sunday, there is actually no option for you. There is no taxi, there is no bus. There may be a volunteer, but oftentimes those are our folks from the faith-based community, and they are busy with faith-based things. So what came out of this was the cold weather bus route. It was a pilot, and it happened last year. It started in November and ran through April. So it was specifically the cold months to really look at what the need was, or really to see what the response was to the need that we had identified. There's a limited amount of funding that we had through the Homeless Health Equity Grant, but we were able to pay for one season to see what would happen. In the first 3 weeks, which was 3 days, 3 Saturdays, 100 riders used that particular route, which when I spoke to RCT, they're like, we've never had this many people on one single bus route on a single day, ever. Which is great. We found that there was a need, and then we showed that there still was a need after the fact, and that it was being supported. And then, like I said, we created an on-demand stop at the shelter at Moose River. So this was part of this pilot program. Here is a map of the RCT route. We're down, oh, you put it in there, nice. So the little red box is the shelter at Moose River in the outskirts of St. Johnsbury, and then it goes through St. J and up to Livernois and comes back. So some of the results that we saw were that many of the riders that were picked up were coming from our known encampments along the route line between both communities, and then especially folks coming out of the shelter at Moose River. And what they were doing is they were utilizing the bus to get to appointments that they had on Saturdays, whether that was like to go shopping or to pick up prescriptions or to go see families, their family or friends that lived in Lindenville or vice versa. It just allowed for folks to be able to be more themselves and live a dignified life of like, I'm not stuck in this one location because I don't have a car and I'm experiencing homelessness. And again, people were talking about Route 2 and how dangerous it is. They were just really happy that they didn't have to be walking on Route 2 in the winter because it is quite a trek into town. So unfortunately, it went really well, but unfortunately, we only had that 1 year of funding. But we know a need continues to exist. People are continuously asking about the Saturday service and why it no longer exists. They reach out to RCT pretty regularly. So RCT has gone through the process of applying for more funding to be able to keep that route a permanent route. But unfortunately, given all of the challenges at the federal level and some of the cuts there, that the transportation funds are not coming through as similarly to all of our funds. They're challenging now. So they're not sure what it will look like, but NECA continues to look for additional additional funding, which we could try to provide to them again to be able to do that route. And also look at, if they did get the funding, being able to look at other routes that could exist throughout the community to get people connected. And then speaking a little bit to the taxi service, no bus stop, no problem. So we did work with the local housing coalition. So mind you, all of this is being seated in the local housing coalition. I say NECA, I say RCT, but it's the local housing coalition that did all of this work through this committee. So through this process, the committee created a procedure for folks experiencing homelessness who needed transportation out of certain areas that RCT couldn't transport, and set up a way for NECA, who was holding the funds, to pay our taxi service to be able to do on-demand trips. The good thing was that now that we had a bus route on Saturday, not a lot of people needed a taxi. And while it was still a low number, we still know that the need is there. We were still sending folks to places that the bus wasn't covering, which shows that we still have a need and need to continue to look for dollars to be able to backfill that. So this was our transportation thing. We wanted a couple other things just because I've heard all the wonderful things everyone else has said. It's like, oh, we have some of those cool things too. We did open up, I talked about it briefly, but the shelter at Moose River is a 20-bed shelter that opened a year and a half-ish ago. So that has been open and operating and has seen some amazing numbers. We've supported, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that like we're approximately at like 53% of folks coming out of the shelter being placed into some sort of permanent housing. Whether that is their own apartment or with a family that they can move into for long term. And then we also have taken part in the public safety work in both the Newport and St. Johnsbury area. And St. Johnsbury was awarded the PSEP funds with some of our other communities that are here. And that has been pretty revolutionary for our work there. We now, just had our second or third situation table, so we are quickly on track to be doing the same work as everybody else in the state. But a lot of exciting things in the kingdom, a lot to look forward to. And yeah, any questions?
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was fantastic to hear about the most beautiful part of Vermont. All right, next we're hearing about Washington County Local Housing Coalition, Mayor Ramsey Pop from Capstone, Patty Parlow from Down Street, and it seems that Ken is not here today, so just
Shorter than days. We're just going to talk a little bit about our collaborations with community partners and how important that is and has been with our work in the our Washington County Housing Coalition. I'm Ramsey Papp. I'm the Housing Program Manager at Capstone. And I'm one of we have 3 chair people, and I'm one of them. Tri-chair champions. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about our community response to sheltering unhoused, trying to expand options for people, and just the importance of collaboration, as I said. Capstone runs an emergency scattered site program for families, and over the past year, we were able to increase the number of apartments we had. Some things came up. We were able to get some extra funding to take care of those, and now we are going into this fiscal year with some funding to add some additional ones and to have another case manager. So we're really excited. But one of the things that has made it really work well is the relationships that we have with our community partners. So this year we worked really hard with the Family Center of Washington County to, we have an MOU with them now to talk, to work
to have a little clearer understanding on how we work together, because there's been some confusion sometimes. But we also, in the same vein, we work with other partners, a lot of times with Reach Up, sometimes with our mental health partners and the other shelters. The emergency scattered sites are specifically for families, so we try to collaborate, and we've been working a lot in Washington County on shared care plans as well. So just a little bit of data about our emergency shelters. Over the past year, we had 61 children and 51 adults in 34 families. And of those families, 22 were able to move into permanent housing. And as I said, this took a community working around these families, and also great partnerships with local housing, the housing authorities and different housing providers that, as somebody mentioned as Jess mentioned, in St. Albans, Washington County has had a lot of projects come to fruition, which Kathy will talk about through Down Street, that have allowed us to house a lot of people pretty quickly recently, which has been great. And I think that's all I had to say for right now. Kathy will rest.
Hi, Kathy Partlow with Down Street Housing and Community Development. I'm one of our Tri-Chair champions. And I just want to say the emergency shelter that Renzi was talking about is the emergency scattered site units, which is separate from some of the other shelter beds that I might talk about in just a second. So just in addition, we also have Good Samaritan Haven, which I'm sure many of you have at least heard of them. They're our largest shelter provider in the area. And what I want to highlight, what we want to highlight about them is that they are now well along the way to obtaining a new permanent shelter site in Montpelier, which has been sort of a long-term goal since most of the sheltering is happening in other communities. So that will hopefully provide 18 beds for adult shelter coming into fruition late fall this year. So that's a really exciting development here in Central Vermont. The other thing, a couple of things we want to mention is that our faith community has really stepped up. Not that they were ever non-present, but when COVID hit, they were just front and center, helping us to provide for our fellow citizens who were in need in various ways, and they have continued to remain involved at all of the tables where this work is talked about and where we're doing all of the planning, and they continue to put themselves right in the forefront of helping and assisting. And just want to really call that out as being a lot of this community collaboration is happening at all kinds of tables, which also is a challenge for us, and I'm guessing a challenge for other folks, which is that these conversations are happening in so many different places that those of us who are trying to help coordinate, it's sometimes challenging to keep all of the things in mind when we're talking about how to move ourselves forward. Thrive, which is our local accountable community for health organization in Central Vermont, has also recently done, as many of your communities will have done, the health needs assessment, the typical health needs assessment, but this year we were able to, through our collaboration with all of our local agencies and the hospital system as well, to get some really pointed questions around housing into that needs assessment in a bit of a larger way than had been previously, which will give us a lot more of a breadth of information for us to continue to move our things forward locally. Last, I will talk about Down Street because that's my shtick at this point. So I will just say that in the works for Down Street is we have a grand opening celebration for a 4-unit apartment building for refugees and asylum seekers in August. That'll be happening in August. So that is a project that's now come to fruition. We will start leasing up Fox Run Apartments in Berlin, which is 30 units of affordable housing. Sometime in early August, it should be next week, but sometimes those dates move a little bit, but really within the next week or two, that will be happening. Marsh House is 26 units currently under construction in Waterbury. They'll be leasing in spring of 2026. We are starting construction in Randolph on, I'm going to say this wrong, Hamesfest. I haven't heard it set up too many times, so somebody can correct me, which is a partnership with Upper Valley Services to provide housing with adults for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We anticipate starting construction on Stevens Branch Apartments right in downtown Barrie, which will be 30 units, with a lease up in 2027. And we're completing pre-development on another 50 some odd units right now. And so that is what's happening in Central Vermont from Down Street. The other two things that have happened really quickly for Down Street is a merger, which is in its very final stages with the Mile Housing Partnership, because there was a need, and Down Street was able to step forward and help with that. And additionally, Down Street has purchased the Speranza Inn, which was formerly known as the Quality Inn in Barrie. It is currently 43 rooms, but it will be a 42-room service integrated hotel. And it already is. We are in operation, but we're also in renovation. I think that's it.
Thank you both so much. So many exciting things going on in Washington County. So we are at the 2 o'clock mark. If you do need to leave, that is totally fine, but we're going to go a little bit over and hear from Sarah Russell and Taylor Tibble of the Chittenden County Homeless Alliance. So they are not technically one of our 11 local housing coalitions, but we partner a lot with the Chittenden COC. So.
Thanks, Molly. Is your mic here? Taylor's refusing to, but she's shy.
I'll do it.
I'm going to stand over here because I put these slides together about 5 minutes before we started this morning, and so I want to appear organized. Thank you so much to all of you for inviting us to come today. When we saw the invite, we weren't sure if we were invited because we're a different COC, but Grace sent us a really nice personal message, and we're really happy to be here to learn about the work that all of you are doing. So I wanted to start today by providing a quick overview of the Chittenden County Homeless Alliance, which is our COC up in Chittenden. We have approximately 25 voting members of our steering committee, and our meetings usually have anywhere from 40 to 60 people who are attending them. So they're really big meetings, and we opt to have them in person whenever we can. Over the last year, we have really made an effort to expand our membership to include Champlain Valley School District has a housing coordinator position. So now they are part of coordinated entry and part of our COC. And we've also have voting membership now from Kids Safe Collaborative. We felt like there was a real need to expand into ensuring that there's representation among our membership for young children. We are also working to build more of a connection with regional municipalities. Burlington is pretty involved in the COC, but we would love to have more stakeholder buy-in from our municipal partners, specifically in South Burlington, Winooski, Shelburne, and Williston at this point. I wanted to give an update that we had completed work on developing our 5-year strategic plan. We have moved into the implementation portion of that plan, and also scored a 4-year, about $400,000 grant from the Community Health Investment Committee at the hospital to help us with implementation of our grant, which also allowed us to hire a full-time coordinator to support our CCHA. And lastly, I'm going to go into data just a little bit, but we do monthly data reviews at all of our meetings for Chittenden County, which I'm going to share some with you in just a minute. Oh, surprise! Here's our coordinated entry data. So this was a snapshot from May that was presented at our July meeting. This is generally what our reporting template looks like every month. We had 846 households enrolled in coordinated entry. In May, we do a breakdown by subpopulations, as I'm sure you will do as well. I will note that our chronic population that's about tenfold higher than pre-pandemic for us in Chittenden. So as probably mirrors a lot of what people are seeing is that folks are in homelessness for much longer because we lack affordable housing too, as an exit. Also of note, we have seen our older Vermonters demographic double since 2023, which we're still looking at kind of pulling apart that data to see how many of those are kind of new folks to our system and how many folks may have been on the cusp of aging into 62 plus and sort of aged into that number. We also track on a monthly basis how many households moved into permanent housing for that month, which was 27 as of May. This is a snapshot of the last 12 months of data. We're at a pretty high point right now. Usually we see higher numbers. We see higher numbers in the winter, but this year we're still seeing a really large number as we move into early summer as well. A big focus of our Homeless Alliance has been around unsheltered homelessness, as we've seen those numbers really increase. Last year, as you can see, our 2024 high was 307 people who self-identified to be sleeping outside. In June, there were 267. That was before the motel exits on around 71. We think that this is an undercount because our community resource center, where we collect this data, had to transition operations to a temporary location while they were undergoing renovations. So they've seen their numbers decline with that change as well. The City of Burlington has been working to infuse some equity into our sheltering on public lands policy, and there will be a hopefully revised version of this policy going to City Council for approval in the next couple of months. We coordinate cross-agency outreach teams to come together. We do some mapping. We talk about where hotspots are around Chittenden County, not just in Burlington, although most of those hotspot locations are located within the city proper. And then as an entire COC, we really talk about the importance of increased low barrier shelter capacity because that is the biggest need. And we're going to talk just a little bit more about that next. Maybe? No, not next. Next, I'm going to tell you about our current shelter capacity in Chittenden County. This chart was created when we had slightly more folks in the motel program right now, or slightly more folks in the motel program. Now that number last I checked was like 160 something households. So this has decreased a little bit. But this is just to give you an idea of what our shelter capacity looks like locally. Of note here, the Howard Center, which is our designated mental health agency, is actually closing their 6 beds in September due to funding cuts. So one of the successes that I wanted to share today was our work around implementing a extreme cold weather shelter this winter. We opened five times for a total of 9 nights and collected some information roughly off people. So this was a low barrier / no barrier shelter that operated when the temps in Burlington got to be -10 or lower. We served as many as 91 people a night. So I think our average operating census was between 70 and 75 folks each night that we opened. And this kind of gives us a view of who is utilizing that shelter as an option when there are no other shelter options. We served 214 unique individuals, which is very close to the number of folks who reported being unsheltered during the month of February, which was about 220 something number. So knowing that we served a huge, real significant, almost entirety of the population, felt like this was really successful. We also reversed 8 overdoses in the 9 nights that we were open. So the need for intensive supports, medical supports, and skilled staff was critical. And the last thing I would really say about this shelter was that you guys mentioned transportation, and we have a little bit more transportation than you do in Northeast Kingdom, but none of it runs to bring people to a shelter that is miles and miles outside of our downtown. So a strategy that proved to be super effective was actually providing transportation to folks throughout the night to bring people to shelter, and then to transport them off-site back into the downtown, to the daytime warming center, and to the Chittenden Clinic for MOU. So kudos to transportation. Okay, next. We have some successes. In addition to our, I think this is our last slide. Yes, this is our last slide. I think this is our last slide. And I wanted to end on a high note where we also present at our monthly meetings the number of folks or households who we are able to support with exiting homelessness into permanent housing. So this is a 12-month look back that we do each meeting, and you can see that kind of higher months are when we see new housing development come online with our partners at most primarily Champlain Housing Trust, but these are new affordable and homeless dedicated units, and most always with a project-based subsidy. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Great to hear from CCHA. All right, everybody, that concludes the membership meeting portion of our day. Thank you guys so much for coming here, for sharing about your local housing coalitions. If you are on the Balance of State Board, please stay. And those of you who are leaving on the way out, I highly suggest you check out some of the awesome stickies that are on the wall of gratitude on the way out. And there is food left over if people want to grab some stuff to go. But again, thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it.